Hello, everyone. Hello. As many of you know, July is the Great Outschool Campout here on Outschool. And today we have Ben Corey and Natalie here to talk about nature journaling and how you can really bring art into your scientific learning and how you can get started. So, why don't we just start with a super quick introduction and then we will talk about what nature journaling is. So, Ben, go ahead and start with a little intro.
Hi, my name is Ben Corey, and I've been with the Outschool community since January of 2018 and teaching science. And in the last few years, really applying my love of art and drawing and illustration to science. And last year, I met Nathaly, who is a scientific illustrator and is a firm believer in blending art and science. And we have been working together since then.
Awesome. Natalie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I come from an illustrator background, artistic background, studied illustration, and I'm now focusing on scientific illustration because as we're growing up, everybody says it's either science or art, and I just couldn't pick my favorite. I love both, and that's where science and art merge in scientific illustration. So it's a passion and something that I strive to teach my learners that they don't have to pick one or the other.
I love that because, yes, I think so often, and I tend to be on that art side myself. So often people feel like they have to choose and the whole left brain, right brain, kind of thing. But yes, there is, a large intersection there between art and science. So tell us, what is nature journaling? What is it? Why should we do it? Why should we encourage our learners to do it?
Well, for me, nature journaling is something that I do. I'd like to say on the side. I don't think that any illustrator goes out there and illustrates in a journal with thinking in mind, having in mind that somebody's going to look into it. For me, it's something very private. It's like taking notes about my surroundings. So, nature journaling is not considered an art form in itself, but later discovered by other people, it's going to be something. Oh, look at this artist's nature journal. This is so interesting. This is what they saw. This is how they thought. This is what they observed. So I wouldn't consider it an art form in itself, but I think it is a mixture of art and science when perceived later.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. And is there an age range that you should really, I think I know the answer, but is there some kind of specific, like, oh, this is a great opportunity, when they're 11 or when they're 5, or when's a good time to kind of introduce the notion of nature journaling?
I think that nature journaling, our first drawings can be considered nature journaling if we're looking at our environment and drawing from nature and adding little notes on the side. For me, that's already nature journaling. Of course, we can go into the future and look at ourselves maybe becoming explorers, exploring the Amazon and taking notes in the Amazon. So those would be some kind of like advanced nature journaling explorations, but I think it doesn't matter. It could be any time of life.
Awesome. Awesome. And what do you need to get started? Is this something you can just walk outside with, a pencil and paper? Do you need some kind of specific tools or location? How do you get started in this nature journaling process?
Is that question for me again?
You know what? Let's take some
My answer
pressure
is
off
pretty
of
simple.
Natalie.
Yeah. I would just say something to draw on and something to draw with. But Nathaly has a lot more experience going a lot more places doing some nature journaling, so she probably has some more specific tips.
I would say that literally anything you can grab, any material and any surface can work. That goes for any form of art, goes for nature journaling. So I had times when I wanted to nature journal and I couldn't find anything except a biro pen, like or ink, and I just had to journal with that. But for I think that considering that it's something that is done outside, you want to pack light. You want to have maybe graphite pencils, eraser, sharpener, Maybe a little bit of color just to put notations. A lot of nature journals do not have full coloring, so maybe some will be finished up with watercolor, but sometimes you'll just have little notes, a little note saying, oh, this flower has this and this yellow and this orange, and then put a little bit of that color on the side. So they don't have to be complete. That's what I love about these nature journals, is that they're like unfinished, they're impressions. And so it could be really any kind of material, but also think about having something that's convenient to carry. And if it's watercolor, you're going to need a watercolor, like a water bottle as well. So,
That
yeah.
was maybe my exact question,
Mhm.
because we're a homeschooling family, and 2 years ago we did a really nature-heavy curriculum where they wanted us to do a lot of nature journaling, and we are also a neurodivergent household. So sitting and really focusing and doing the watercolor and things like that was a little bit challenging for myself included, where just sometimes that process can seem daunting. So is there a way to break it down and maybe go into steps? Because a lot of times we felt like, oh, we aren't going to capture everything here in one sitting. How can you do that when it's something where you're outside experiencing it?
There are different subjects that we draw. If it's a tree and it's standing still, we have all day. Of course, the light is going to change, so that might be tricky. But generally, nature journaling, I think, is about quick sketches. We are capturing the essence of our topic. So, for example, I can show sketching of a swan. It's going to be a bird that, let's say, it's floating on the water. It's not that quick, but also it might turn its head, and then we've lost the position of all the parts. So, for example, my approach in nature journaling would be to capture these basic shapes. And this is not just for nature journaling. This is for art in general. So any art school will actually teach this approach of breaking down a subject into basic shapes, big chunks. What is the, like if I asked somebody, what do you see? What silhouette do you see? Well, I'd say we could say this is like a half circle and it has a little oval sticking out of it. So just go to quick strokes. So these are sketches, or it's called croquis sketching. The next step would be let me just find this right here. So the next step would be actually to do the drawing on top of that. And again, it depends on how much time we have. So in this case, I did erase the drawing underneath, but you'll see a lot of artists not do that. So I didn't have to finish the whole swan. I could have, for example, left the basic shapes and then maybe just captured the detail of the eye. It would be fine for nature drawing. This is what I focused on. But kind of like the general shape, a quick movement and pose is what you're aiming for. And then, of course, you'll have artists who take it a step further, so they'll add color. So that same picture has, let's say, 3 steps, and this is just using colored pencils where we add, but it didn't have to be that like that again. I could have just put a little note and said, this and this color for the beak, this and this color for the neck. And that would be enough information, because most of the time nature journaling is kind of like your starting point, and then you'll go back into your studio and use those notes for finals. So, yeah.
And do you have tips for maybe those who are more scientifically inclined but less artistically inclined, but want to start exploring, that aspect
Mhm.
of nature journaling, scientific illustration, however you want to look at it? So maybe they're like, oh, I'm not a great artist. I don't feel like I have, that skill set. What would you say
It's
to?
very interesting that you bring that up, because actually a lot of scientific illustrators aren't artists to start with. So it's a field where artists and scientists come together. On one hand, you'll find artists who really want or love science, and then they'll learn about science. Or you'll have scientists who would like to illustrate their science, and then they catch some they go to a class and they learn a little bit about art. So it's from both directions, you could say. As for scientists or scientifically inclined who believe they don't have the skills, I have to say I'm a firm believer that anybody can learn how to draw. It is a skill that can be learned. And just going back to the breakdown of that swan, you'll see that it's basic shapes. So if you can draw a circle, an oval, a rectangle, if you can see and just be honest with what you see, like, is that angle like this or is it like this? It's very, very, it's trial and error as well, and a lot of patience, but I think anybody can do it. So I don't think that those scientifically inclined have to be afraid of it. This approach of basic shapes and then adding on to that with more and more artistic knowledge is the way to go.
And drawing is such a powerful way to explain science. I mean, that's really kind of what we do in a lot of our classes. And as the science coming towards the art, I would say the biggest enemy in getting started is perfectionism. And thinking, okay, well, if I can't do it perfectly, then I just can't do it at all. And really just got to start making lines on paper and having a lot of fun, and go from there.
Mhm. And in regards to perfectionism, a lot of learners think, oh, it's not perfect, but I like to say that we're drawing a specimen and no two specimens are alike. So if your specimen is a little different and mine turn out different every time, then just think of it as being your own unique specimen, your own unique approach. So
Yes, and that's where we were coming from, I think, when we were looking at this in our own, curriculum, where we would see examples like that finished beautiful swan and go, well, we can't do that. And then that process, I think, is where we, kind of ran into problems where instead, if it had been broken down step by step, I think everyone would have felt a little bit more comfortable with that. Even for those of us who are artistically inclined, it's like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of detail, to try and capture all at once, especially with a living being.
mhm.
And Ben, I'll take this to you, take some of the pressure off of Nathaly here. Why is it important? Why is it important for learning? How does it help to understand those scientific principles when it comes to the art component with science and nature?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the way our brains work. It's just so totally encompassing and engaging. You're using all of your senses at one time to focus on one thing. And then the more you draw the same animals, or the same tree or whatever your subject is, you just start to notice more and more things. You start to notice, oh, the ankle is right here and it bends this way. Or this animal has a little useless toe that I've never really noticed. You start to see all these little things that you totally miss when you don't sit down with your environment.
I think that's totally true. I actually, there have been examples where artists, through drawing, have made discoveries that scientists missed. So, drawing something takes time. It takes very close observation, and through that, you're learning. You're capturing the shape, the form, and of course, the movement, the anatomy of what you're drawing and its characteristics. By breaking things down into basic shapes, we see that a lot of shapes repeat through nature. So I tell my learners, well, we have a brain-shaped coral, we have a brain-shaped mushroom, we have a brain-shaped nut, and there was one more thing, I think mushroom, and there was cactus, brain-shaped cactus. So, okay, we could start drawing a brain, but we could use this to draw many, many other things because these forms repeat in nature. And that's what I tell my learners. You're learning to draw one thing. We can never draw everything, but the more you draw of different things, you will see how things are similar and how things that you thought were completely different from each other on a different branch of the light tree of life are
Mhm.
actually very similar and have similar solutions.
Yeah, totally. The vertebrate skeleton. You will see it everywhere.
Well, we're drawing dinosaurs as well,
Yeah.
and you learn how to draw the bones of the dinosaurs. I always tell my learners, look at your own leg.
Yeah.
Look at the hip. Where is this? This is the part of the dinosaur, and then it just repeats through all the dinosaurs.
Mhm.
And I am putting up a link right now for one of your many classes. This is specifically scientific illustration where art meets science, but you really incorporate art into most, if not all of your science classes. Am I correct?
We do, and we have a art teacher, or sorry, a history teacher, and English teacher, and Spanish teacher, and hula hooping teacher that do the same thing in their classes. So all about tapping into that brain power and drawing out some learning.
Yes, because I was actually just looking for my daughter. She is finally old enough to come into your class. I've been waiting for probably a year and a half now, and I was like, "Oh, there's so many more." I saw the history class where they are, sketching out different things, that
Yeah,
happen.
the stick figures, stick
Yes,
figure stories of modern world history
I
is the
love it.
tagline.
I love it, and I totally fell down that rabbit hole myself. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know we had all of these." So I'm sure you'll be seeing my daughter and probably son in some of those classes here soon. But yes, for those of you watching who are interested in learning more about nature journaling, scientific illustration, or really just having an artistic approach to learning, which we do in my house, and it has been a game changer, that's a great place to start. Ben, I think you have it up there. What is the name of your collaborative? There it is.
It's under my tagline, Benjamin Corey's Creative Curriculum Cooperative.
Yes.
A lot
So
of alliteration.
anyone who is interested in learning more about those classes and combining art and science, that is the place to go. So, kind of last thoughts, takeaways as we wrap up here. If I'm a parent watching, I'm like, oh, this would be great, something I want to incorporate in my schooling approach. What are some tips, tricks, best ways to get started?
Start drawing.
For me, it's not even drawing. Sure, it's hand-eye coordination. It's seeing the world. So start looking. Start looking and always be truthful, because the way we see things, a lot of artists lie, and we have a lot of Photoshop nowadays. But when if we look close and we're truthful, that's where we get to the core of scientific illustration, which is telling the truth of what we see.
All right, awesome. Oh, and I see, can you put the link in the comments? Yes, I can. I can't do it from here live for whatever reason, but I will go back and be sure to add that link directly in the comments so you can click on it and go directly to that class and then check out all of the other wonderful classes that they offer and fall down the rabbit hole like I did. All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ben and Nathaly. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Sarah.
You're
Yeah, thank you
welcome.
so
Bye,
much.
everyone.